Alright, so I've decided to fuck around on some of the Halo Infinite multiplayer maps on Training with some bots and talk about the campaign because I just wrapped it up this week and it honestly completely blew me away. I mean, my expectations were pretty low, admittedly, for various reasons. I feel like the big one being is that you really don't hear a lot of good things about Halo Infinite at all. I know a lot of that is multiplayer, and I honestly don't really pay too much attention to it. I don't know what sort of state everything's in now. I think at one point, there was a lot of missing features and technical issues and that sort of thing. I don't know how that played into the campaign as well. But in its current state, I mean, I had an absolute blast. I mean, you would think, with especially how much they hyped up this campaign about it being a reimagining of what a Halo campaign is and a whole new era beginning, that if the campaign really hit the mark like I feel like it did, even through the roughness of the multiplayer, you would have heard more about the accomplishment and quality of the campaign side of things. Which, I don't know, maybe I'm the minority here, but it was just fantastic, honestly. Like, they really nailed the open world. Like, to me, there's only two other games out on the top of my head that I feel like really sort of nailed the type of feeling I had with the Halo open world. And I think that's Breath of the Wild, and hopefully in the future, Tears of the Kingdom. I'm sure that probably will. And Nier Automata, where there was just stuff all over the place to do, and it was super fun to traverse and to do everything. Great variety of things to do. That's not to say that there aren't other great open world games either, but I feel like they have some more strengths and weaknesses where, in my opinion, and it's almost hard to find a weakness in those three particular examples I'm talking about here. But traversal, it's kind of weird because traversal reminds me. I guess I'm out. I guess you're limited to your equipment here, but I don't have the grapple hook. But that's obviously a huge key new thing, and what really probably made the game, honestly, what really helped traversal mostly, and it got me in the mood to play one of the new Spider-Man games, honestly, because it was just so fun to swing around and just sort of grapple up mountains and that sort of thing. And then, it's not just good to traverse, because you gotta feel like you're going somewhere, right? And there was just loads to do on the ring, and it was all, for the most part, really fun. I'll admit I didn't do the audio logs, and I feel like perhaps some of the Spartan cores and I honestly didn't even notice the propaganda towers until the end of the game. Completely missed them. Some of that stuff wasn't as fun, but where I feel like Halo Infinite really does a good job is that you eventually unlock the ability to use a wasp or to, steal one of the other flying vehicles, and you can just fly around really quick. So even the stuff that isn't as fun, you can traverse the ring in an entirely different way that's a lot quicker and streamlined, and still, you know, experience some of the creativity they had, and hiding spaces and general ideas that they had. And I thought that was really great. I know that may not sound fun to just sort of whip through them really quick for an hour or two like I did, but for me it was. Like I said, the only reason I really didn't do the audio logs is because I mean, I don't really think you got much of a reward for it. I wasn't really super interested in the deep lore, especially not playing a campaign since Reach, or 3 in the main timeline, I guess. That, the reward, and I don't know, it was harder to track. At least with the propaganda towers, they were easy to track. There wasn't a lot of them. And the Spartan cores, you got upgrades for your character, which were pretty useful. I played on easy as per usual, but I feel like they did a great job with difficulty. In general, I feel like Halo's been good at that across the board, at least on the lower difficulties. I can't speak as much on the higher ones. Hopefully they match up, but I feel like for my skill level, I guess when it came down to it, though, the main missions, the Banished, Outpost, and especially some of the bounties you had, I mean, I feel like they weren't a cakewalk, but, they provided a really fair challenge, I felt like. Maybe some of the, squad missions were a little easy, and there wasn't as much variety with them, but I still thought they were fun, just a quick thing to find along your way and knock a few out. Quick, simple, easy, fun thing to do. Actually, this map, I think, is based on an area from the campaign. I was just thinking, I know this campaign probably better than any of the other Halo ones. It's like before, I don't know if I ever really particularly noticed. Like, it was kind of borderline on how much of the different environments they were taking from campaign missions, and that this one, I think it was a lot more clear if they were or if they weren't. But yeah, I mean, they just nailed it in my opinion. My biggest complaint, I have two complaints. One is that the game did freeze a couple times. Not too game breaking or anything, but that's still, not a good thing. It also froze when I first started doing the training too, but it's going fine now. Another complaint is that I feel like, towards the end of the campaign though, I feel like there was too much in a row of just sort of the standard missions, which, I mean, I guess it is a Halo campaign, and some people may have liked it, sort of focusing more on its roots at the end, but I just really enjoyed some of the more open-end ones, like going and taking out a number of bases within a certain range on the ring, and that sort of thing, which was, aside from the side missions, also some primary missions that had that objective. So it's really just those two things. Or maybe even if there was more traditional missions, if they were more spread out through the campaign. But yeah, the bosses were good. That's another thing I will say too. Like I said, I played through the original trilogy in Reach. I don't remember bosses really being that fantastic in my opinion. Maybe an unpopular opinion. But I thought they were pretty good in this game. The whole game has a good feel to it too. In my opinion, just fun. I don't know how else to describe it. I don't know if calling it like you would expect from Halo is necessarily the right way to put it, because it is certainly a bit different. But it's sort of the evolution I would have wanted to see Halo make with, all the potential it had. I should probably talk a bit about my history with the Halo franchise, because that might also sort of give more context to my thoughts and opinions. But don't get me wrong, I enjoyed the original trilogy. But, I mean, I don't know, I think they all improved off each other. I think they were fine for what they were. But at the end of the day, I mean, they weren't as special or nostalgic for me as they are for a lot of people. Maybe it's just because I was really terrible compared to some of the other people who I was playing with and that sort of thing, but they're still fun to be had. And it's like, maybe one day I'll want to replay Halo, and I feel like Infinite's definitely at the top of that list. I feel like Reach, in terms of a traditional Halo, is also potentially on that list. I don't know if I would really ever feel particularly motivated to play through any of the other ones again. I feel like Reach sort of goes under the radar a bit as well. That just sort of being a weird spin-off, but I just sort of felt like it did a great job of continuing to build off what was established, and I liked the change in story. ODST was fine too. Obviously, this took things to a new level, but besides maybe being a bit of a downgrade to 3, which it sort of came out around, felt more like it was based around what you had available in 2. It was obviously sort of an interesting experiment of them, messing around with connected kind of open world. Yeah, this is another weird map. There's another one in the desert. Feels more like a test room than anything. But yeah, I don't know if I really have that much more to say. I had decent fun playing through the multiplayer maps here. About what I would expect. I don't know. I don't know if I would encourage people to give it another shot or not. Like I said, I know my taste and I feel like my taste and experience compared to the average person and their sort of connection to Halo is a bit different. So I definitely don't feel like a qualified, voice of reason on whether or not you should play or enjoy. But I don't know. Maybe you can relate to some of the stuff I said and can find fun in this like I did. At least in the campaign. So I forgot to even talk about this when I initially recorded everything, but the story, obviously not the most important part of the game, but still probably worth mentioning. Once again, I haven't played anything since Bungie, really. And I think they did a good job getting you filled in and almost making you curious as to what happened in the previous 2 games, and even spin offs for further background and details. I feel like the story this time around is a little more emotional driven as opposed to lore driven. And not that one is better than the other, but I just feel like it worked better in the trilogy, whether it be because of execution or the series itself. I also wanted to make a quick note that it's bittersweet. I don't know if this is a spoiler or not, but to not deal with the Flood in this game because they were as frustrating as they were fun at points to deal with.